becoming much, much more aware of our impact on our planet, either as the buying decisions that we have as individuals or as businesses. It's really, really important that we consider what we're consuming and the products we're consuming and the businesses that we are purchasing from. So that's got a huge part to play in terms of how we buy things and how we're consuming things. So because of that, it's then really important for businesses then to present their sustainability credentials, and that begins very much with measurement. So to understand where you are and where you're going, the very, very most important step is to measure the impacts that you are having on the planet as a direct result of operating your business. So to do that, we measure the primary carbon impacts of a business. And these impacts cover the 7 greenhouse gases, the most common of which is carbon dioxide. So we regularly talk about carbon footprint and carbon dioxide, but actually it covers all of the warming effects of all 7 of the greenhouse gases that are trapped in the atmosphere for varying amounts of time. They have different warming effects on the planet, but we give them a carbon value. And we use carbon because that's the most common and it's also the easiest one to deal with. So we measure the company's impact so you know what your starting point is, what you are currently producing, and then that gives you the opportunity to do something with it. So essentially, it should be all of the impacts of the running of the business itself. So that should cover all of your operational impacts. So, as a manufacturing business, that should cover all manufacturing areas of the business. It also extends to your sales, customer services teams that might be using fossil fuel to visit customers, where that might be trains, planes, automobiles. It's important then to include all of those various different direct impacts as part of the business measurement. That then latterly extends to your supply chain. So the supply chain that you also need to run the business, that has an impact and it contributes to your own carbon footprint. So your supply chain, your supplier base are really important in terms of how that might affect your own carbon footprint. An example of which is paper, and paper within a printer's carbon footprint typically represents somewhere around 65 to 75% of your indirect impacts. Okay, that varies a little bit. So for large businesses, they are required to measure annually and include their annual carbon footprint within their reports and accounts. I would suggest that as part of your carbon reduction strategy, as you are making considerable inroads in your carbon reduction, it might well be a good time to remeasure your carbon footprint. So you might also choose to add some value back into the reductions that you've made by increasing the frequency of your measurement, and you might choose to do that annually. Otherwise, our recommendation would be measure it every 2 years, because typically it takes a couple of years for a significant reduction to be made in a company footprint. The factors that are included are anything that requires the combustion of carbon or fossil fuels, or carbon from fossil fuels. So if you are purchasing electricity is generated through, we've now stopped in October 24 using coal to generate electricity, which is a really, really good place to be. But we still use gas to generate our electricity, and there is an element of fossil fuel in our electricity generation, unless we are generating that on site through renewable sources like green solars or hydro on occasions, particularly with the paper mills, or with wind generation. It would also include the gas that we purchase, sometimes for heating, sometimes for drying on the presses. It could be gas within forklift trucks. Fugitive emissions, so that's gas that's been lost to the atmosphere through our air conditioning systems, either through servicing or through damage and repair. And then finally, it will be the fossil fuel that we use in traditional ICE vehicles, so your traditional combustion engines, petrol, diesel vehicles. We record the amount of carbon that's been used as a result of burning the fuels in company-owned vehicles, so lorries, cars for sales teams, lorries for deliveries. And then finally, that extended scope 3, so we categorise those as scope 1, scope 2, so that's your direct emissions. Your indirect emissions are bracketed as part of scope 3, so that extends to all of your various different suppliers that are providing you with components, materials, so that you can run your business. Well, over the years, there's been some really, really good tools that have been developed that are really quite accurate for businesses to be able to measure that carbon footprint accurately. There's some very, very good ones in the industry. Steve at the DPIF, they offer Climate Calc, which is a way of being able to measure your impacts. Greg at Nero, Dominic at Carbon Quota, they're all very, very effective at measuring a print-specific carbon footprints. And then, of course, Carbon Balance Print and Paper, we also support a number of different businesses in the measurement of their Scope 1 and Scope 2 impacts. That is an excellent question, and that's really, really important. So you have to start off, and the very first place is to measure it. But once you've measured it, the whole point of that is to do something about it and to do something about that number. And what do you need to do? Measure it, reduce it. It gives you the ability then to be able to target areas within the business that are high carbon generators. So you can see areas of the business that is producing a lot of emissions. And then you can create a carbon reduction strategy, carbon reduction plan, so that you can address those issues over time. So you'll have some short gains that might just be switching the lights off at the end of the shift or at the end of the week, switching machinery down. They're all really, really good business sense. Good business, good sustainability. They work pretty much hand in hand. It's about reducing energy use, it's about reducing waste, and that reduces the business's impact on the planet. So there are some really good near-term goals, and then there might be some mid-term, longer-term goals when you look at those other areas of the business that are generating impacts. So that will be the company vehicles, and it will be the power that you're purchasing. So by deploying solar panels or investing in solar panels, that's a great way of reducing the company's impacts and reducing your fossil fuel use and increasing your energy security. So, and costs, reducing your costs. So it all makes really, really good business sense to have a strong carbon reduction plan in place. But what leading businesses do, what Blackmore do, is they take those current impacts and they mitigate those today. So they take action and responsibility for those current unavoidable impacts whilst they continue on that journey of reduction. So you're going to have to forgive my bias on this, but one of the leading examples is Carbon Balance Print and Paper. It's a really, really clear way to demonstrate as a business what it is you're doing. You're measuring, you're reducing, and then you're mitigating those impacts that both help the business and help protect endangered species and endangered animals. So I think that's probably one of the best actions that you can take whilst on your carbon reduction journey. There are other complementary accreditations out there, so EcoVadis, SBTi, B Corp. There are other really, really valuable schemes and conservation that you can sign up to.